Hello, students. Today's poem is Dover Beach, written by a very famous Victorian poet, Matthew Arnold. Here in this picture, you can see English Channel, pebbles, and the cliffs of Dover. In the next pic, here you can clearly see what is a cliff is. This is the pic of cliffs found at the Dover Beach. These are very famous, and we have a description of these cliffs in this poem. So it is necessary for us to know what is a cliff is. Another pic, here also you can see the pictures of cliffs. Look into this map. This map will help us to pursue this poem. This is the map of English Channel. Here you can see England, France, Belgium, Netherlands, and in there between we have a narrow part of sea which is called English Channel. Here in this map we can clearly see Strait of Dover. Strait of Dover is the narrowest part of the English Channel where England and France is nearly 26 kilometers away from one another. You can see at England's map at the last corner there is a town Dover, and at the French coast you can see the town of Calais. In this poem, our poet Matthew Arnold is at Dover when he was writing this poem. He was with his wife in an inn and looking at the sea. We can see many more pictures of the sea, cliffs. Here in this picture you can clearly see the moon is shining over the sea and the whole sea is lightening. This is the picture of Matthew Arnold, the writer of this poem. He born in 1822 and he died in 1888. Now we will move towards our poem. Here, from here we will start. We can clearly see this poem has 4 sections or 4 parts. First one, second, third, and the last fourth. This poem has 37 lines in all. We will start this poem from the very first line, Dover Beach by Matthew Arnold. I am reading out it for you, the first section of this poem. The first section contains 14 lines. The sea is calm tonight, the tide is full, the moon lies fair, fair means bright, upon the straits. Straits, we have seen what is strait. On the French coast the light gleams. Gleams means shining, shines, and is gone. The cliffs of England stand. Cliffs of England, we have seen its picture. Glimmering and washed out in the tranquil bay. Tranquil means quiet, and glimmering means wavering light. Come to the window, sweet is the night air, only from the long line of spray. Long line of spray, spray means here surf produced by the waves. Where the sea meets the moon blanked land. Sea meets the moon blanked land. Blank means whitened. This word has been taken for whitened. Moon has whitened the land. Listen, you hear the grating roar of pebbles which the waves draw back and fling. Fling means throw. And they return up the high strand, begin and cease, and then again begin with tremulous cadence. Cadence means rhythm. Slow and bring the eternal note of sadness in. Eternal means permanent. Look, students, the first line, the sea is calm tonight, we can very well understand because it has very simple diction like William Wordsworth. This first line gives us two simple basic facts. It's night time and the sea is calm, quiet. The tide is full, the moon lies fair. Here, in the second line, we get a little more description of the setting of the poem. It's high tide and the moon is shining fairly, means beautifully. Upon the straits, where it is shining. Look, the second line is not complete in sense. To complete the sense, we will have to look to the next line, to the third line. That poetic technique where a sentence is broken up across more than one line is called enjambment. And here the poet has used enjambment because the second line, the moon lies fair, depends for its meaning on the third line. I also want to point out that little break in the middle of line marked by comma. Here you can clearly see the tide is full, comma, the moon lies fair. The line takes a pause here between two complete phrases. That little trick is called caesura, and it divides the line into two parts. Okay, Now, in the third line, we come to know where the moon is shining. It is shining on the little body of water which we call the straits. The speaker also tells that he can see across the straits to the coast of France, as it is not very far, it is only 26 kilometers away from England. Here, here we get a pretty clear idea of where the speaker is. He is on the coast of England in the town of Dover, looking out at the English Channel which separates England from France. Dover is a town right at the narrowest point in this channel. Now we will move to our lines number 4th and 5th. Suddenly, the light that he saw shines out and then disappears. When the light in France disappears, the speaker looks back at his own coast. Here he sees the famous white cliffs of Dover, which are shining in the moonlight out in the bay, and he reminds us that the bay is calm. Now we move to our line number 6. Here we get a little more information about what is happening in the world of the poem. We learn that the speaker is indoors in a room with a window. We also find that he is talking to someone. Now, next line, line number 7th and 8th. In these lines, again, the speaker draws our attention to the edge of the water and the surf, the long line of spray, and he is looking where the sea meets the land. Here, the word blanked, I have already told you, its meaning is whitened. Now, line number 9th. Before we were imagining what this scene looked like, the speaker tells his companion to change the frame. He draws his companion's attention by saying, "Listen to me." But what listen? The sound of water, the grating roar. Lines number 10th and 11th. The grating roar of pebbles, those little rocks are being pulled out by the waves as they go out and then thrown back up on the beach when the waves come back in. Line number 12, 13, and 14th. Here, the grating sound of the pebbles starts and then stops and then starts again. The speaker describing this rhythm of the ocean. He calls it a tremulous cadence slow. Here, tremulous means shaky or trembling, and the word cadence refers to rhythm. And this rhythm brings the permanent sadness, not temporary. Now, second paragraph or the second part of this poem, which contains only 6 lines. Sophocles long ago heard it on the Aegean. Aegean is a part of Mediterranean Sea which divides Greece from Turkey. and it brought into his mind the turbid ebb and flow of human misery we find also in the sound of a thought, hearing it by this distant northern sea. Now, our poet goes on a mental journey back to ancient Greece. He imagines the famous playwright Sophocles heard the same sound as he stood next to the Aegean Sea. Sophocles was one of the great Greek authors of tragic plays. The poet is saying, surely this sound must have inspired Sophocles to write his great tragedies about human miseries. Here, the word turbid means cloudy, stirred up, muddy, and this word is often used to refer water. So, Sophocles is imagining an analogy between human unhappiness and muddy water moving in and out. Now, in the next or the last two lines of this stanza, we are again in present, back on the shore of the English Channel. Here he calls the channel this distant northern sea. By distant, he just means far away from Sophocles and the Aegean Sea. The next or the remaining two stanzas we will study in the next video. Thank you.